Hi there, my name is Grace. My sister Madeline and I are on a mission to reread our favorite YA fantasy classics and discuss why they're maybe even better for adults. Do you look expectantly at your cat every morning, waiting for it to finally give you your hero's quest? Long for a dragon to battle or raise or keep house and cook for? Realize that a majority of your formative memories revolve around reading. If any of this resonates, you'll probably enjoy our podcast, Dragon Babies. We're obsessed with pretend food, fully realized animal characters, and wise dragons having sarcastic conversations with female protagonists. Authors we've covered include Ursula K. Le Guin, Tamara Pierce, Terry Pratchett, Diana Wynne Jones, Garth Nix, Robin McKinley, and many more. You can find Dragon Babies on your favorite podcast app or at dragonbabiespodcast.com.
Hi, welcome to Turn-Based Besties, a podcast where two grown adults with no free time talk about their favorite RPGs. I'm DJ.
And I'm Sam, and we're besties that love to game.
And we're both wearing our besties hats, and we didn't even plan it.
Didn't plan it. Same hat. Basically the same hat.
Well, it's basically...
Color schemes are a little different.
I think... Hold on, let me turn around.
But that's what makes them unique. So you have more blues. I have more oranges and reds.
But we both got them from Oregon.
We did get them from Oregon. That's true. Well, and that was a great trip. And I'm so sad that we shall not be joining the family group on their trip this year, but we'll be there in spirit.
No, yeah. For those listening, we take a vacation together every summer, but someone decided to have a baby, so
maybe the baby can just come. Would you make Tay change her mind? Just bring the baby.
Just bring the baby. Yeah, leave the other two at home, but just bring the baby.
Oh, they'd be so pissed. Well, it's okay. It's okay. But fine. Speaking of those two, some funny stories from recent times. In is just obsessed with the Wildcrats, a PBS kids show that's been on for a while. They talk about animals, and it's actually amazing. I kind of love it. She is totally obsessed, and just randomly we're driving in the car and kind of asking her about her day or listening to Disney or something. It was totally normal, and then she just blurts out, "Owls can't move their eyes, but they can turn their head all the way around."
Oh my god!
And just yells it out, and it was it was great. It's so similar to the way I think I was when I was younger. I love to learn about animals too, and it was so exciting, and I would want to tell people about it, and that is what In is doing.
I mean, Sam, one of my fondest memories of you, we were just getting to know each other when you and Tay and Max and me, and I think Kara, and we were playing some board game, and you screamed, "That's a dragon!" when it wasn't. I think it was just a dog that someone named, some kind of like Rhodesian Ridgeback. Was that it?
Yeah.
And as confident as ever, you're like, "That's a dragon!" And and Max and I were like, "I don't know really who this Sam guy is, but we like him now."
Well, I think she's correct about the owls. I might have been wrong about that dog, non-dragon dog, but yeah. The other funny thing is, In just had her pre-kindergarten, her preschool graduation, and so they dressed them up in their caps and gowns and walked them out there and would hand them their diplomas, and they asked two questions. They asked, "What was your favorite thing about preschool?" and "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And so In said what she wanted to be when she grows up is basically she wanted to be a wildcat. She said somebody that learns all about animals, which was nice. She didn't. Cute. Yeah. And then the other thing for what was your favorite thing about graduation or about preschool, and she said trail mix. So that is Taylor's side. That is Tay's side, not
Yeah,
mine. But
sure is.
trail mix was on the brain. But anyway, so that's what's going on in our household. We're surviving with the new baby K, trying to get sleep as best we can. But actually, she's been a trooper. She's sleeping better than the other two, so it's been okay.
Oh, that's great.
What's going on in the world of DJ?
Tomorrow night I open up Romeo and Juliet.
Woo!
Woo woo with Vashon Opera. I am singing a smaller role in that as Gregorio. I like to just call him Greg in it.
Yeah, just Greg,
Yeah, Chris Greg. I get a
old Greg.
sweet. I get a. I keep saying like I'm old Greg, and the chorus members are very young and they don't get it. And I'm like, cool. I sound like a dumb old person right now. But yeah, I get a pretty sweet sword fight. So that's
I've seen some images of it. It looks pretty awesome.
it's pretty cool. I feel quite pleased with it. And also it's a cool company and a cool show. So I'm pretty excited about some of the opera singing that I'm doing these days.
Well, great. That is great. And I'm excited for it too. But today, for the podcast, we have a big one. Today, we're discussing Mother 3. So, a
Woo!
lot to discuss today. We're kind of broadening things today. We're going to have the normal review, but we're also going to give a little bit more background and significance because it is a significant game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, we'll start off with kind of the history and development here of Mother 3 and the precursor games to Mother 3. And it was a rather tumultuous development, one might say. You might even call it the game that almost wasn't in some respects.
Yep.
So DJ, what do you know? What can you fill us in about kind of the history here and development of the game?
Sure. Well, I'll even start with a brief history of Mother 2, or what a lot of the world knows as Earthbound. Um, we didn't get Mother 1, I don't think officially until I think maybe last year or maybe a couple years ago when it was finally ported to the Switch Online. And I have not played it. I've heard that Mother 1 is difficult to get through. I hear it's kind of a slog, unfortunately. Does that mean we won't cover it? Not necessarily, but I think if we work our way backwards, we would go through Earthbound first and then see if we really want to go to Mother 1. But I digress. The story, a real brief story of Earthbound. The game begins when a meteorite crashes on a hill in the middle of the night in Ness's hometown. Ness is your main character. This strange occurrence leads to him taking a walk outside, and he meets a talking bee named Buzzbuzz, who tells him that
Classic.
I know, classic Buzzbuzz the bee, who tells him that a cosmic destroyer, I think we could pronounce it Gygus, is returning. So, with Buzzbuzz's guidance, Ness learns that he must face his destiny and conquer his inner demons in a quest to collect the 8 magical melodies, also uniting a group of 4 children called the Chosen Four along the way. Now, some folks I've seen on Reddit have jokingly called Mother 2 a revision or a reimaging or even a remake of Mother 1, which had a similar story. I believe the creator at one point was even like, yeah, you could think of it as a sequel, or maybe you can think of it as just a continuation of Mother 1. I think it's left to the fans to decide how we want to interpret it. And he mentions that a few times throughout the series, which I think is a little freeing. So, Earthbound was released on the Super Nintendo in 1994 in Japan and in 1995 here in the US, and it was kind of a flop, unfortunately, in the US. It was not a commercial failure, but it didn't really sell that well. From motherforever.net, they say that the video games and computer entertainment summed up the game as Barney-esque. So, the purple dinosaur. A Barney-esque romp in a McDonald's playland. The main criticism being the childish graphics and low difficulty. Marcus Lindblom himself even attributed the game's commercial failure to the high entry price. I didn't know this. The game was sold in a large box. Okay, I actually didn't know that part, but I didn't know that it was sold for, I think, $70. So the game was sold in a large box with a 135-page strategy guide that just came with it for $70. Doesn't sound wild today, but in 1994 for a Super Nintendo game, that's kind of wild, and I bet inflation today would make that like $110.
Wow, I would have guessed more. That's so much. And then also 135-page strategy guide for a game that they're considering too not difficult enough.
I know
That's excessive.
it's a beautiful strategy guide. When Earthbound came on the SNES Mini back in 2017, I believe, when that came out, there was a QR code that came with all the SNES Minis that you could scan, and you could get a digital version of the
Oh,
135-page strategy guide still. So
I think
they
that sounds a little bit more, a little bit less unruly
a
than
little
a
bit. It's cute too.
more manageable.
The strategy guide, not to be super tangy here, but the strategy guide is like a travel guide.
Oh, fun.
It's a travel guide wrapped up inside a strategy guide, so it's really cute. Kind of like the one I sent you that a fan made for Mother 3. The really
Yeah.
beautiful artwork. Anyway, I first heard about Earthbound via Super Smash Brothers on Nintendo 64, where Ness was a secret character that you could unlock, and I didn't like playing as his character because back in the mid 90s, he was hard for me to use. Like I didn't enjoy it. Sorry,
Oh,
people.
Ness is a hard character.
He
Yeah.
was a hard character. I mean, I think the folks who were really good with Ness in Smash Brothers loved him, but I was just falling all over the place all the time. Anyway, that is a brief history of Mother 2 slash Earthbound, but let's get into Mother 3, where we're actually talking about today. It started, is this right, Sam? It started development in 1996.
That's
That's
what I saw in multiple places.
wild. I totally believe it. I guess that is because it's the game that almost wasn't.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Initially planned for the N64, then the N64DD. I'm a terrible gamer because what is that?
I believe that's the disk drive. So it was like an updated version, almost like a PS4 Pro or something nowadays. But I think it included discs. And so it would theoretically have um, higher potentiality to play, higher resolution games and those kind of things. But I think that was pretty much a commercial failure and may have only been released in certain areas too.
Yeah, I don't remember if the US even got that. Now that you mention it,
I don't know that we did.
I
Yeah.
remember, I guess I remember reading about it. Obviously, Sam wrote the history part right here because I'm reading it and I'm like, what's that? Uh,
Yeah,
um,
I threw you to the wolves on that one, I guess.
no, that's okay. That's why I was like, this will be funny. I'll just say, what is that? So yeah, originally for the N64, then they switched development to the N64DD, and then finally to the Game Boy Advance. So there we go. So it had
Yeah,
to
it was
go.
crazy. I guess it was supposedly initially made in 3D renderings as well. And then when they kind of said, okay, we can't do this, we got to scrap it, they had to recreate it in 2D for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah,
The reason it took so long when you kind of read into the development makes more and more sense because that's just insane.
I know. There are photos, and I remember seeing them online of images of Mother 3 on the 64. Like
Yeah.
they released some footage of it, and it looked cool. I've got to say, I kind of want to go to that other reality where it got made for the N64 just to play it to see what it's like, because I'm sure it's
Could be
pretty
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so finally released for the Game Boy Advance in 2006, just in Japan, and then on the Nintendo Switch Online in 2024, this year, also only in Japan.
Ruffling some feathers. Ruffling some
A
feathers.
little bit, little bit. Brownie Brown and HAL Laboratories are the developer for Mother 3. They're known for Super Mario 3D Land and a few other games, like the Kirby games that some people may play. Publisher, obviously, Nintendo. Some of you are probably wondering, how did we play this game? Well, we'll let you guess how we played the game. We'll just leave it ambiguous like that so Nintendo doesn't get angry at us. So, we did play the game and we could understand the language. There you go. Read into that however you'd like.
Very good. But in and what a game it is. And so there's a lot kind of under the surface there behind, that you might not immediately notice. There's a lot of thought that goes into this game and a lot of significance and meaning behind the choices. And that's one thing that I think makes you appreciate it more and more as you play it. So it's unassuming. And most of this that I'm about to talk about is going to be based on interviews that I saw from the creator Shigesato Itoi. I think that's how you say his name, or close to something like that. And so he would describe kind of the meaning behind things, the significance behind things, and I found it intriguing, but also made me have a greater appreciation for the game. So, and I'd say overall, it's surprising that it's so thoughtful because being 2D, being these sprites and pixel art, you might not assume that it has depth to that. There's thought and meaning behind those when it's such simple visuals overall. So a few things. So there's this duality or juxtaposition between the serious themes of grief, with loss of a mother, loss of a sibling, violence, apocalyptic nature of some events, and juxtaposing that with the absurd. You use frogs as your save points. There's always funny commentary. They're breaking the fourth wall constantly. There's these chimera animals, which are a mishmash of different animals. So I think that juxtaposition of the serious with the absurd kind of disarms or diffuses those strong concepts and makes them more approachable in some respects,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good tactic to use to make that more palatable. There's also along those same lines this uncomfortable beauty of the chimera. So the chimera, the connection or the fusing of the two that we mentioned, and there's chimera creatures that you're commonly fighting. And there's a few examples. There's like a shark kangaroo. There's a walrus orangutan. There's so many. There's so many. It's one of the best parts is what are you going to fight next? And seeing that kind of combination to create something wholly new and beautiful is a theme that goes on throughout the game. More fusion discussion. So there's fusion of the mechanical or the artificial with the organic. So this starts at the very beginning. Even the Mother 3 title, you'll see it with a metallic and wooden forms interspersed together, and that dichotomy there is present even from the initial start. uh it's kind of something that the bad guys, the pig masks, and those people are doing. They're fusing cybernetics and artificial things with animals and with people. And it's also the old fusing with the new, like the village. It starts out as this old village and then it becomes a big city. So the old and the new is always kind of together there. You can even find a notebook in there that you can read that says that details their plans to there being the pig masks to improve the wildlife by taking them apart and fusing them with either cybernetic modifications or parts of other living creatures. And this plan was dubbed the Fascinating Chimera Project. Let's see. Another concept is that uncomfortable events or difficult situations can lead to perseverance or growth and gains in one's abilities or strength or whatever you might be growing in. Specifically in the game, it's the psi powers or these magical powers that you have. You initially are granted them after an event in the pool with one of the Magypsies. They liken this event of gaining your magical abilities to puberty almost, or menstruation or something like that. It's just an event where your body is changing
Mm-hmm.
and it happens at a certain significant point. And it can be difficult, but it leads to this huge growth and massive spike in power that you have. When you gain your individual psi powers after that, most commonly they'll happen after having a kind of febrile illness. You'll notice your character will say is having a fever. And normally that's not an exciting thing, but in this game that's exciting. You say, oh great, I'm about to gain a new ability. And the thought is that you're going through a struggle, and in the end, after that struggle, you're through it, you will have you'll be stronger, so you'll have another ability. That
Hey
that's
Sam,
struggling. Go ahead.
did that happen randomly, Sam, or was that like with predetermined levels? What do you think?
Yeah, that took me much too long to realize that commonly you have a level. Most games you level up and then you gain an ability at a level. In this one, it honestly took me much too long to realize that when you'd start fevering would also occur at certain levels. I was kind of just like, oh, I've played it long enough. They must think I can have a fever now and get an ability. That's great. But no, it's going to be based mostly off the levels. So that was an oversight on my part there. But yeah, that struggling leading to growth is really an underpinning theme of the entire game, especially with you lose your mother, you lose your sibling, and then you're struggling through this, you're working through it, and can you be stronger on the other side. They also mention a few things about kind of the importance of all members of society, showing inclusion, showing all peoples, and that is illustrated by a couple characters or several characters. um, Duster, for one, is brought up a few times because he has this limp, this noticeable limp. So they bring him up as an important figure for underrepresented groups of differently abled people, or people that might, you know, yeah, have different physical abilities than others. And then
Mhm.
the Magypsies, which for whatever reason my mind just reads as magpies, and I don't know why.
Literally same, man.
I
Literally.
don't know why, which would also be a cool name for them. So
Yeah.
they could be the magpies. And these individuals, are they non-binary? Do they represent drag queens, just queer individuals in general? I believe a lot of groups could look at them within this game and see representation from their own group. I don't know
Mhm.
what you would say, DJ, but I could definitely see them as representing a good
I
group of people that generally don't get represented in video games.
That's, I mean, that's kind of how I took for it too, that they were non-binary. At first I thought, oh, are these drag queens? And then I thought a game in 2006, probably not. But they do seem to be, I'm sure someone's going to get mad at us for saying this too, but they do seem to be like gender fluid
Yeah,
folks, not bringing like an overwhelming amount of tension to the fact that they are gender fluid in the game. But yeah, they just seem like they're representing a different group of folks out there, which was pretty cool today even to see, and I imagine was pretty revolutionary in 2006 on a Game Boy Advanced game.
I'd expect so. Yeah. And interestingly, I didn't see too much that discussed in the interviews with the creators that discussed those characters in these terms and tried to define them at all, which maybe speaks, volumes in the sense of these were just the characters,
Yeah, true.
this is just who they are. And but that would be really ahead of its time if they did that. But maybe so. Maybe
Maybe
so.
so.
Either way, representation for however you might want to see them. And I think that's good.
Hmm.
Let's see. Other things that were kind of showing significance and meaning in here is there's even hidden meaning in the names of the brothers. So Lucas and Klaus, that's an anagram for one another, which is great. Shows their connection. Shows not their brothers, but also as you go through the story, there's definitely more connections there.
Hmm.
And then I found this to be pretty cool with those deep, difficult um, uh, themes like grief and everything like that. You'd think maybe, oh, this isn't a game for adults, but apparently it was a well thought out uh, part of the game to make it geared towards kids as well, or at least possible that kids uh, could play this too. Specifically, they noted that most of the writings are in hiragana instead of a lot of kanji or other things which is one of the maybe more difficult pictorial languages in Japanese that kids might not have learned all those symbols yet, is what it was saying. So just more accessible to kids as well. So they wouldn't be hiding these concepts. They wouldn't be trying to keep this game from children, they'd be able to play it, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's kind of the significance and some meaning, some deeper meanings there. And then I think now we should go a little bit into the game and the
Into the
review.
game, into the story. This is the major spoiler section. So I mean, we also kind of gave a couple spoilers already, but like this is where Sam did some great homework and is gonna talk about the story. So if you don't want to know spoilers, skip about 25 minutes. I don't know, I'm just guessing, but skip about 25 minutes or so. I mean, if you hear Sam talking still, I don't know, skip till you hear me.
There you go. I'm going to try to cover it faster than 25 minutes, but I did write a lot here. So we'll see how long this takes me. So story wise, though, there's 8 chapters. The nitty gritty of it, the short of it, is that it's going to be set in the Nowhere Islands and centered mostly around a village, this Tasmili village. And in short, again, your mother dies near the beginning, and then the rest of the time is, and your brother kind of runs away. You play mostly as Lucas, but there's multiple different viewpoints that you'll take as the primary protagonist or primary viewpoint of each chapter. But mostly yours, Lucas, and Klaus, your brother, has also run away. In a way, and then you're looking for them. You're trying to find out the secrets of the island. You're trying to figure out why she died. More things kind of come up as you go, and so that's the very, very short. But if we go chapter by chapter, starting in chapter 1, you get an introduction to the family of Lucas and Klaus. So Hanawa, the mother, Flint, the father, and then the 2 children that we mentioned, Klaus and Lucas.
And
But you
Boney,
can,
and Boney.
and Boney, the family dog. You can change the names of the characters, which I didn't know I was changing very important names. And then it was too late. So I did change them in my playthrough to Sam, my own name, and Pete. I don't know why. I don't know why. So kind of changed the flavor of it there. Might not have been the best thing to do. But by the time I was past it, I was like, I can't go back and change it. We're just going through this.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. But the opening sequence is rather stressful. A lot of things going on here. So there's an army of these pig masked individuals that you notice they've set fire to the forest, and then Flint is tasked with saving some of the townsfolk, hilariously named Lighter and Fuel. Um, Hanawa is gone visiting your father and has not returned. Flint saves these townsfolk, but then you later find out that Hanawa had been killed, they think, by a Drago, which is a dino, a T-Rex like monster that lives in this world. And he's devastated. Flint's devastated. His wife has died. He goes into this blind rage. He has to be subdued. He's injuring people around him. He gets put in prison, and then Klaus leaves to try to fight this Drago. He's trying to avenge his mother, and then Lucas goes after him. While you're looking for Klaus, you're looking to go after them. You find a cybernetic hybrid Drago. So again, you're already kind of exposed to these chimera, but also this hybrid of the cybernetic or the artificial with the organic, the Drago. And you think that that's the one. It's missing a fang, so that's the one that must have killed Hanawa, your mother, because she was found with a fang that had killed her. So you defeat that, and you travel back towards the village, and then you notice at the bottom of the mountain a body that they are saying looks like Klaus. So
Yeah.
it looks like your bro has potentially fallen off kind of a cliffside there when looking for your mother or the thing that killed your mother. So starts out super tough, super sad. So a lot of difficult things in that first chapter. So then in chapter 2, you take a different perspective. So like I said, is you can take the primary perspective of multiple different people. There in that first chapter, actually, you're Flint for a lot of it, I believe. So this one in chapter 2, you take Duster's perspective. He's a local thief, and he's tasked by his father to go to this castle, this Sohei castle, and find an item. He doesn't actually really tell you what you're looking for. When you get there, you find the princess of the castle, which is Kumatora, becomes a party member at a later time, is an important character. She's a magic wielding princess of the castle. You end up going back a few times to the castle, and you find the egg of light, which is what you're supposed to be stealing. So you get that there. Jump to chapter 3, you get to be the monkey named Salsa. That is the perspective that you have now. He works with his kind of owner, or this peddler Facade. Is that how you say his name?
Yes, because it's all a
It's
facade,
all a Facade.
Sam.
There you go. There you go. And so Facade he kind of controls him in mean ways, and uses the shock collar to control uh, Salsa. And you're tasked with a few different things. You have to deliver these happy boxes that the pig mask people are giving to the townsfolk, and those represent televisions, as you might expect. You meet Kumatora again, or Salsa does, and she realizes that you're in trouble. You're not being treated well by Facade, and she helps you get away from him. And kind of at the end, Lucas arrives too, and through the help of Kumatora and Lucas, Salsa is saved from Facade at the end of chapter 3. We jump to chapter 4. Now you get the point of view of Lucas, and then also we have a 3-year time jump. So we're kind of jumping into the future. Diddle-doo, diddle-doo, diddle-doo. So you notice the influence that these pig masks people and whoever their bosses are, which you don't know too much about, as well as their happy boxes, which are seemingly pumping propaganda into the masses. And then also now people have a currency system. So capitalism is creeping into the village too. The currency is Dragon Power, or DP. So modernization of this culture has begun. Again, kind of that old with the new dichotomy thrown in there. So Lucas then and his dog, again, the other playable character known as Boney, you're trying to find in this chapter Duster, who has disappeared 3 years prior. You find him to be hiding out, basically, or as the bassist in a band, going by the name Lucky, and working at a club named Club Titty Boo. So while you're kind of going to the club looking for him, you find Duster, but then at this time, Lucas runs into one of the Magypsies, Ionia, and gets his power of Psi at this point. So this is when you kind of go through that change. You also find Kumatora in the club, and she's been kind of disguising herself within there. And then you have to convince Duster that he is Duster and not Lucky, and that he needs to come with you to look for kind of the egg of light, which you've lost again, and potentially fight the pig masks. Just kind of come with us and let's do this thing. Going along the absurdity of this whole game, he makes his decision to leave his band by having a rock paper scissors competition with each of them, which was just hilariously off-putting. It was great. All right, so then chapter 5 starts again, still Lucas's point of view, but you also have Boney, Duster, Kumatora, other people in your group there, and you're looking for the egg of light. You end up discovering that it's inside this Clayman golem that Duster had hidden it in the past, and so you have to kind of do this wild goose chase and find that golem. When you do and get the egg of light, Duster gets the rest of his memories back. Let's see. You have to go to a Thunder Tower next. And the Thunder Tower was interestingly designed to basically, it sounds like, destroy any homes of people that didn't assimilate and didn't accept the happy boxes and the propaganda into their homes, so that everybody would be on the same page with this cultural revolution and the pig mask men dominating everything. So yeah, so you get to the top of that tower, you fight Facade again at the top of the tower, and he falls off, seemingly to his death. And you all jump onto this ship and kind of fly off. So that one was pretty dramatic ending there for chapter 5. Chapter 6 is all just a cutscene. This one was kind of odd, you know. You're from Lucas's perspective. You're in this golden field, and you can walk short ways, and then it'll kind of be another cutscene. And seemingly it's part of Lucas's imagination, or it seems to be. But yeah, so just a cutscene, and you're walking through this field.
Yeah, it's his hallucination, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, chapter 7. So I thought chapter 7 is when it really kind of picked up, in my opinion. You had the full party members, you had an objective that developed here in this chapter, and that's when it really started to pick up there. So
it was also the longest chapter too.
Was the longest chapter, but I was okay because there was stuff you were doing. You know, there's like
yeah,
you're trying to, as you'll find out, pull out these needles. So you had things you were progressing with. So still Lucas's perspective. Let's see here. You end up learning from one of the Magypsies that there are 7 needles sealing away a powerful force known as the Dark Dragon that lives under the Nowhere Islands. Only certain people can pull these needles. Potentially, it's people who know this power of the PK Love psi ability that you have. So whoever pulls the needles could get the power of the dragon to do with what they want, for good or for evil, is what they're saying. You notice though that one of the needles has already been pulled. Oh no. And you don't know who did it. You don't know who else might have the power to pull the needles. So you need to get going and start pulling these needles so that this other person doesn't do it. You'll travel a lot of different places in this chapter, and I won't go through all of them, but you go to the Chimera Factory. You go to a snowy mountaintop. You go to Saturn Valley with creatures called Mr. Saturns. And that's where you get Duster back because he had, I guess, fallen off the mothership, the ship that you had held on to at a different place.
Oh,
You go to a fiery mountain.
With Snakey.
With Snake? Oh yeah, Snakey, the rope snake.
Rope snake, yeah.
You go to the Cerulean Beach in the ocean, and then there's also this, is it Tane Island maybe? And then there's also a temple you go into. So a lot of places. Some interesting, notable things about this chapter, I would say, is that in the Chimera Factory, you find Salsa the monkey again there. You also find this Dr. Andonuts, which is a callback to Earthbound, because Dr. Andonuts is the father of Jeff, a playable character from Earthbound. Mm-hmm. So there's a little callback there, and he'd been forced to work for King P, who's kind of the master of all these pig mask army people, and forced to work in the Chimera Lab. So that's an interesting little callback. You also, let's see, some other things that were interesting about it is you have to fight Facade again at some point during this chapter. And oh no, you thought he fell and died from the Thunder Tower, but he was.
It was all a facade.
It was all a facade. He was rebuilt as this cybernetic version of himself. Could that be foreshadowing for some other person who fell from a great height that then was rebuilt and you get to fight again? Oh no, maybe it is. It is. Let's see here. The Tane Island and kind of the underground or the underwater thing was hilarious. The oxygen devices, just the mermaids or mermen or whatever it was that end up breathing life into you. That was kind of hard though, I'm gonna say. Having to you couldn't explore much. You had to just know where you were going pretty much and get to the next oxygen point or you were done for. Yeah, man. So that one was a little tough. Let's see other cool things about this chapter, or notable things at least. Oh, it's on that, I think, the Tane Island, where you have to eat a strange purple mushroom, which are basically akin to the psilocybin mushrooms, leading to hallucinations, so that any of the creatures or chimeras you interacted with on that island ended up looking like people from your past, and they would bring up fears and bad memories from your past. Basically, you're having a bad trip at that point in time. You also, Lucas gains an important item, the Courage Badge or the Franklin Badge, a legendary item that can reflect lightning or electricity. That's important to know for kind of how the game ends. That's when he gets that. And then, I think, you're introduced to the concept of when you pull the needles, the Magypsies disappear. They know they're going to disappear when there's one that's guarding each needle or associated with each needle, basically. And when it's pulled, their job of guarding that needle is done, and they just disappear, and they're totally okay with that for the most part. However, sometimes they want to be remembered. They kind of give a little speech and talk about how this is just the way it is, and I'm so happy that I know this is happening and you were able to pull the needle. And it's especially in a game that's talking about death, and it's kind of showing a happier version compared to the traumatic version of your mother dying at the beginning, being killed by the Drago. This is somebody, expecting it, knowing this is the normal cycle of their life, and leaning into it. Yeah. Which was kind of nice. Let's see. Then we jump to chapter 8, last chapter. You are then go, full on into the modern kind of the modernity, I guess you might say, into New Pork City, which is a hilarious name. Everybody in Tasmilli Village has moved to New Pork City, and the leader again, King P, also known as Pokey Minch. You find out that they're from Earthbound as well. So, or maybe you don't find that out, but you find out that they're called Pokemon, and that's another callback. You then interact with Leader. So Leader is the tall, incredibly tall bell ringer from Tasmilly Village. And this is when there's just a huge dump, kind of like what I'm doing right now about the entire thing. This was a huge dump of the truth, as they say, with the whole history of everything that's happening. I don't know about you. I liked knowing all of it. It was interesting, but it felt a little clunky to just be like, you're getting little pieces of the story here and there, and then boom, here is everything all at once, you know?
Yeah, they could have. I think that was my only, not even a complaint about the game, but it's just they probably could have added another chapter or even two more chapters. I would not have been mad to have played two more chapters to get that in a more organic way. It kind of just felt like, oh, we're at the end of the game. Let's do an info dump on the player.
All the stuff that we should have told you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. So you find out that all the people that live there in Tasmilly Village and now in Newport City came from a different civilization, which had a cataclysmic event, an apocalypse, and everything was going to die off. Did you hear that? I think I just hit my microphone.
Oh, that's
We're
okay.
good. So they had run away from this apocalypse on a white ship and found their way to the Nowhere Islands. And they were protected from the apocalypse from the Dark Dragon's powers there. They then couldn't seemingly live with the Dark Dragon very well, so they decided to kind of put him in suspended animation until they might need his power. So that's where the needles come in and the Magypsies. And so they seal him away. And then they also thought, hey, the way we acted led to our whole culture led to the downfall and the apocalypse, apparently. So they wanted to wipe their memories and start over clean so that they could have a better chance of a successful culture and a successful civilization on the Nowhere Islands. So they used the Egg of Light and put all their memories into that Egg of Light. Leader was this tall bell ringer character is the only one who didn't get his memories wiped so that he could retell the story and tell people what they need to do if ever that situation was needed, like now when Porky showed up and screwed everything up. So apparently this Porky guy came from, stole the phase distorter, which might have also been from Earthbound, and traveled through time and space and found his way to the Nowhere Islands and aligned himself with the seventh Magypsy, Locria, and figured out all about the secrets of the island and decided, hey, I'm gonna take these secrets and I'm gonna try to get the power of the Dark Dragon, and I'm going to create this place how I want it to be with these chimera and make it modern and make me the king and all this stuff. So, but also, unfortunately, he could not pull the needles. So he needed to employ the masked man that you've also been chasing after to help pull the needles. So, yeah, you end up going to the top of the 100th floor of the Empire Pork Building, these names. And that's where you will kind of fight him. Did you find it annoying with all the, oh, you're almost there, going next floor, the 100th floor, and then it wouldn't be the 100th floor, and then it's like, oh, next floor, the 100th floor, and they just kept doing that to you? I thought it was funny a couple times, and then I was a little annoyed by like the fifth time.
It was a little cute. I don't know. I wasn't super annoyed with it because I was like, I think this is gonna go on for a while. It seemed pretty much like Earthbound Mother
It's
humor.
exactly what they would
Humor.
do. It's exactly the humor of the game.
Oh my gosh! To do it, they're like, cool. It'll be funny 2 times. It'll be annoying 4 times. Let's do it 5 times.
And then also you take forever to get to the top.
Yeah.
And then you also find out that actually the last needle is all the way under the city in this cavern. So then you go from the very top down into the caverns below. Okay, so now we're getting near the end here. You find out, or Flint is there with you now too, and he runs a way forward and kind of realizes that, oh no, the masked man is actually Klaus, your brother.
What?
Oh my gosh. You might have kind of been catching on to that at this point, but um, you also fight Mecha Porky. So Porky has been kind of kept alive by this machine because he's gotten so old, and then his machine runs out of power, and he gets tricked by Dr. Andonuts to be put in this absolutely safe capsule, which is, it's funny. So he's safe, but you guys basically, you can't hurt each other. Nobody can hurt anybody inside the capsule. He can't hurt you from outside the capsule, and it's a stalemate. But then you have to fight the masked man, or Klaus, who doesn't know he's Klaus. He's been recreated as a cybernetic version of himself, and he's lost all his prior memories. So this is kind of the final battle, and I thought this was, I mean, it's the climax, and this is the best part, right?
Mhm.
This
Totally.
is it hits on every level, emotionally, I think mechanically. So you have to fight Klaus, but you won't. Your character will not attack him. So you can try to attack him, but you will not attack him. So you have to survive long enough to hear out the story. So, the whole time you've been working on battling techniques and all these things, and then now you're not going to use any of that. And I kind
Yep.
of like how that flips the normal JRPG thing on its head. Normally, at this point, you're fighting a 7-level battle against God, and you're using everything you've ever learned. And this one, you're fighting a 1-level battle against your brother, and you're not fighting him. You're just going to try to survive. So you have to use all healing and guarding and try to, avoid and all that stuff to stay alive long enough. It's a little bit challenging to
Mhm.
make sure you don't die, because he's still hitting back at you. Um, and so then you notice that Flint sacrifices himself at one point for you and gets mortally wounded. So your father, and then you're trying to have Klaus remember. You want him to remember, and um, so the memories of Hanawa, your mother, eventually kind of get in and interject themselves and break through to Klaus, and he remembers who he is, and he
Mhm.
takes off his mask. But then,
Mm.
instead of happily ever after, he kind of realizes what all he's done. He realizes, all the destruction that he's been a part of, and he functionally kills himself by
Yeah.
shooting a, you know thunderbolt or lightning bolt at Lucas, who's got the courage badge that reflects it, and it kills him.
The Franklin badge. Yeah.
Franklin badge, yeah.
I
And yeah,
know. It was
and
so
so
sad.
it's so sad.
The line where it says Lucas remembers Klaus's smell, and I'm like, oh my god. Like
Yeah,
that was so depressing.
it is. So yes, it is so depressing, because it's like, you always hear about, yeah, smell being such a deep seated memory, um and that's true. And yeah, they just, but it's also so, it's so organic. What's more organic, what's more visceral, what's more human than smell? Like, visuals, there's always screens, and there's stuff like that. There's
Mhm.
the cybernetic, or the artificial can be visual, can be auditory, can be all of these things, but smell is so, yeah, organic and
Yeah.
visceral. So yeah. Anyway, so he now dies after basically killing himself. Uh, but then you pull the last needle, and the dark dragon is then kind of summoned, and apparently destroys the island in kind of like a second apocalypse almost. So it's like just everything seemingly is destroyed, and you see this end question mark, and everything's dark. However, you do notice some conversations between the characters that start happening after this end and in the dark. And so there's some discussion of what's going on. So they're talking, is this the afterlife? Are they still alive? Are they being recreated by the dark dragon's powers after destroying everything in the new image of what Lucas wants? What is the ending? And I think it's supposed to be a little bit up to interpretation for what you see in that.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think, DJ, about the ending?
Yeah, I think it was, and I can't remember this. After you walk around for like maybe 3 or 4 minutes in that black, in the like the blank screen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and after, does it just end after that, or do you get to see character portraits again? I can't remember.
I don't think you see character portraits. I think you hear them, and then I think it goes to mother. I think it just says the emblem mother. I think.
Okay,
I'm almost.
no, I believe you.
I'm not 100% on that, but I think that's what I seem to recall.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they died. Because remember, if you pull the needles and you have like a good kind heart, right? Then
That's a
then
yeah,
the dragon will do good things for you. So maybe the dragon was just helping things revert back to the way they were.
yeah, maybe. But then some of the needles, or at least one of them, right, was pulled by by Klaus, by the
Yeah.
masked man. So maybe that affects how it works. I don't
Yeah,
know.
totally.
Who knows? But some of the best endings for shows or games or whatever, I think do leave a little bit to the imagination because
Mhm.
you kind of fill in. Because if they give you the exact answer, if they give you the exact thing that happens, somebody's going to be upset with that. Somebody's going to think, "Oh, I wish this was going to happen. I thought this was going to happen. I thought this was going to happen." So somebody will be upset. Leaving that ambiguity, leaving that uncertainty, I think lets people fill it in with what closes the story off the best for them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of a nice way to do it. Maybe sometimes it comes across as a crutch, like you should just have an ending, you should make something up. But I think for this one, it's a nice way to do it.
They had it, but they do have an ending.
They have an
And
ending. Yeah, they have
but
an ending.
I think the creator Itoi wants the player to feel not kind of some sense of ownership of the series as well. So I think that's why some of the ending is left to the experience of the player, so we can interpret it.
Yeah.
Giving us some as like some sense of like authorship, I think is what you call that, but don't quote me on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're part of the storytelling in a way, I guess. Not
Yeah.
exactly. Kind of. You're there with it. Well, cool. So that was a bear of a thing. I don't know if that was fun to listen to that much of an info dump. But anyway, so now we will move on with the review and talk about gameplay, DJ. What is the gameplay like in this game? Now that they know everything that happens if they listen to it.
Now that you knew everything, this is an old school turn based JRPG, top down, 2D, pixelated, all the buzzwords. There are no random battles, so the enemies are on screen. And I believe when you are over leveled, you can bump through the enemies and they'll disappear until you like leave the screen and come back. In Earthbound, when you were over leveled, you would just get an automatic win and you would get the experience from it as well.
Oh,
So I was like, why did you not keep that from Earthbound? But whatever. There are shifting protagonists, as Sam mentioned. The game doesn't really. The game starts chapter 4, basically. The first three chapters, you can think of them almost as like a prologue. And it's cool to see the different viewpoints for sure, but I can understand it feeling a little sluggish before you get to chapter 4.
true.
So, characters can use physical attacks, they can defend, and they can use items. Lucas and Kumatora can use their Sai, so this is basically magic ability. Duster can use different tools. Repeatedly, he can use the tools with pretty much no consequence or without any cooldowns, though it did seem if you kept on using like Scary Mask or something, it would only work one time on the same
Yeah.
enemy, you know. So that basically he was your buffer debuffer, and then Boney could sniff to find weaknesses. Boney was basically just your inventory pack that could also attack. Like,
Yeah, I learned that much too. It took me too long to learn that too. It's like he's really fast, and so you want to use him for items and
yeah,
stuff, and that's kind of all he and sniffing weaknesses, sure.
sure. But mostly he's just your inventory, which is great. It was a cute concept that I've not really seen used before. Weaknesses and resistance seem to matter to overall damage output. Also, utilizing effects like pinning someone down with the staples or
Yeah.
putting them to sleep. You could then hear their heartbeat, and then you could get the rhythm game. I'll talk about that in a moment. You could make them cry to decrease their accuracy. But remember, if you can do that to an enemy, they can do it back to you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was basically this was kind of one thing that, I thought the weaknesses and resistances seemed to matter. If they were weak to something, great, or if they were
Hmm.
resistant, it wouldn't hurt them much.
Hmm.
But a lot of games with the debuffing or the buffing of offense and defense, stats, I just didn't think that seemed to make much of a difference in this. Not as much as I would hope. A lot of times if you're spending a whole turn, instead of attacking, debuffing them, your next attack should really hit. And I feel like it just wasn't how I normally expected it with this one.
Oh, sure. I have an opposite reaction to that though, because
Oh,
I feel like not with the debuffing, but I feel like with buffing your party, either buffing their attacks or buffing their defense, I thought was really effective.
oh.
But yeah, I didn't pay much attention to debuffing the enemies, but I think you're right.
Yeah, I would still
You know,
do it, but it just didn't feel like as consequential.
I think you had to. I mean, I think to get your biggest bang for your buck, you had to spend a round buffing up your party, and then spend another round debuffing the enemies, which then meant as Lucas, you weren't attacking till the third round, which in non-boss battles meant the battle was over.
Yeah,
You
true.
know,
That's
uh,
true. Yeah, that's why you kind of have to use all those things just in boss battles. That's true.
yeah. The HP bar, they do this in Earthbound too. It's really unique. It's a odometer, so if you got hit, even if you took mortal damage, if you acted quickly, or if Boney, got to act quickly, you could heal someone before their health rolled down to zero. Something that I didn't pick up on until much too late in the game was if you guard, it slows the roller down.
Hmm,
And you have to know that for the last battle, or you will not survive.
that's true.
You know,
Does it
uh,
slow it down enough? I never used it until the last battle. Does it slow it down enough that like you can get all the way back around and do another turn fast? Oh, really?
yep, it sure does.
Oh,
Though
I didn't know that. I
I
would
would,
just
I would be freaking out and be like, "Oh God, oh no, oh no, oh crap! I didn't push guard. Oh, back up again. Oh crap, they're dead."
Oh, see, I didn't ever do guard into the last one. And so I either would try to heal them super fast, or it was just like, okay, I got to kill the bad guy before. And so it would just be spamming
Yeah,
attack as fast as possible.
yeah. I think it put us both into a
A
sense of
frenzy.
panic. Yeah, a
Yeah.
frenzy, if you will. Um, Backing up the beat rhythm mini game within battle. So each bad guy has a heartbeat that also kind of corresponds to the music. It was, I think, because of the way you and I played, there was a little bit of a delay sometimes with button input. I
Maybe.
I
I was very frustrated when we talked about this the first time, and I was only getting maybe two or three in a row ever. I got better. I was getting
Yep,
some 16s, and it does feel uh, um, very satisfying,
it
but
does.
it is difficult.
It feels satisfying, but for the most part, it doesn't really move the needle in the battle that much. I think it was just to make you feel good.
I mean, two hits compared to 16 hits is probably like 100 or so damage difference or more, right? But
I think it depends who you get it with. I don't know why. I was really good at getting like 14, 15 hits with like Boney. But by the time it would roll over to Lucas, it would be like one, two, three, you're done.
well, yeah, okay,
You
fair
know?
enough.
So I don't know. I mean, I have a friggin' doctorate in music, and I'm like, why is this rhythm thing hard right now? I don't understand. And don't any of you make a singer comment. I was an instrumentalist first. I can do rhythm. Well, anyway, let's move on to the visuals, Samuel.
Yeah. So visuals, we talked about a few of these things. It's 2D pixelated. You have a top-down viewpoint, some good sprite work going on there. I would say in the battles, what was kind of cool is you would go to a battle environment showing the enemy combatant kind of on the other side versus a la Pokemon almost, or so many
Mm-hmm.
turn-based things that go to a battling environment. But then kind of behind them, they have these cool psychedelic, I would say, moving backgrounds behind the enemies most of the time. Color palette, I would say it's very bright, which contrasts the darker themes, the more serious themes that we've mentioned multiple times. And then I'd say it's almost a little bit, it's so bright it's almost a little bit washed out almost at times, but that's its aesthetic. That's what it looks like, which is nice in its own right. I think it looks nice.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with you. I liked that the sprites, the little character models, popped up on the screen when you battled. I
Yeah.
I don't know why it just made me feel like I was more invested into the battle. With Earthbound, the one thing I had complaints about was it was just the box that had your name and your health in it, and that's what you would fight with is the box.
Yeah, that's I can see that. That helps. A little detail.
That's a little
and
detail.
and the sprites of all the chimera were always fun.
Oh yeah.
If it's the walrus orangutan, or like I mentioned before, or whatever it would be, or the ostrich elephant, or there's a million different ones, and it's just the way they made them were hilarious.
Oh, you could tell they were having fun.
Oh, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. The
So audio.
the audio, the soundtrack was great. I read that some folks don't like it as much as Mother 2 or they think Mother 2 Earthbound is better, and that's I think they're both just really fantastic soundtracks. You and I had never played Mother 3 until about a month ago.
Uh-huh.
There was something almost nostalgic still about listening to the soundtrack. It was just really soothing and warm. There were these awesome leitmotifs or themes that when I heard it, I knew what to expect. Um, there was the pig mask theme that when you heard it, you knew like, okay, we're gonna get a scene with the masked man or with Porky or with the bad guys, and it's probably gonna be 2 minutes of an info dump right now also, or the love theme, or the Mr. Saturn theme from Earthbound. That was nice. That someone I have played Earthbound before, so that was kind of fun to hear Mr. Saturn's theme again. The Game Boy Advance I think has a charming sound to it. I know some folks prefer the original Game Boy chip sound. I never I never owned original Game Boy, so I can't really make a comment about that. I know. I jumped right to what was the handheld Sega game? Game Gear
Game Gear. Yeah.
Game Gear. I was a Game Gear person instead. I know, very odd because
No,
I
that's
was
okay. We had both at one point. I mean, I fought my brothers a lot over the Game Boys, but then when we had Game Gear, if you were traveling in a car and it was dark, you needed that Game Gear because you needed that backlight.
and I had the Game Gear that had the attachable magnifying glass to it that would make it like look bigger,
So you
which
could see those pixels even bigger.
I could see those big old pixels, baby. So, you know. But yeah, I thought the sound was great. Tons of leitmotifs in this game. The Mother 3 wiki actually has a list of all of them, and it's like 30 or 40. Like a
Wow.
lot. Yeah. Really impressive.
Okay, yeah. I mean I totally agree. I really liked it. I was impressed by the range of emotion and themes that they could convey through what sound like simpler tracks overall, but I thought you could really convey such a wide range of themes and emotions. So
Yeah.
I thought it always fit. It was
Thank
good. It was
you,
good.
thank you, Shogo Sakai, for composing the music.
Very good. Who was your favorite character, DJ, or characters?
I liked Lucas. I thought he was a great silent protagonist that still had a lot of personality and charm. Unlike most protagonists in RPGs, I don't think he wasn't always your biggest hitter. I mean, like PK Love obviously hits for a lot, but he was great at a lot of things. He was great at physical attack. He was great at magical powers. He's a good healer. He was a good buffer for your party. He could kind of do it all, but he felt just as vulnerable as the other party members. Like he didn't feel overpowered or anything. My other favorite characters were the Save Frogs. I thought they were so cute. And they always had something quirky or funny to say. And I liked how they would change with the environment too. So there'd be some that would be like holding a red balloon and like floating with a balloon, and one would be driving a car, so you had to like chase after it to actually get a save in. There was the eel when you were underwater that was like, "Hi, I'm a save frog that's shaped like an eel." Or there was one that was like hidden in a barrel. I thought it was just a stupid, cute way to save the game.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Instead of like, oh no, where's that save point? It's like, oh great, this is a save point. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you,
I agree.
Sam? Who were your favorite characters?
I mean Lucas is up there too. I think he was my heaviest hitter, and he kind of does everything. He's a more than a jack of all trades. He's like, a king of all trades, an ace in the hole.
King.
How can we keep this going? Queen of
I,
Hearts. No, but he's just awesome at everything he did. So like he could hit hard with magic, but also physical attack. He could heal. He could do some debuffing, I believe. Even he could do a lot
Mhm.
of things. So I like that. I think it messed a little bit with the assigning roles. So normally, you have a role for kind of each person that you can lean into. There's a little bit less of that, which might decrease the depth of gameplay in this game. But overall, he's just kind of a really powerful character.
Yeah.
Who else did I like? I laughed a lot with Salsa's chapter. Just the
Yeah.
monkey trying to communicate through symbols and dancing and those kind of things and getting frustrated. That was fun. And then the Magypsies, I think, were highlights as characters for me.
Hmm.
They just had a coolness to them and a charm and a humor. And so I really enjoyed the Magypsy characters.
I
The
actually wish
magpies.
the magpies. I wish that your party could have been five and not four, and that Salsa would have joined you for the rest of the adventure.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, I guess that would have been a really weird party to have like two animals that don't speak language
And a person that doesn't speak.
and a person that doesn't speak. That would put a lot on Kumatora and Dusty. Basically, Kumatora because Dusty also didn't really speak a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that would be a lot on Kumatora, but
Yeah, that'd be
I don't know.
cool. So you love the save points because they were kind of a character, but also a thing. What were your other favorite aspects in general of this game outside of characters?
I like that it was weird. It's a strange game with really weird quirks, but they never seemed so weird that you, the player, felt like you weren't a part of the joke. Does that make sense? Like you were always in on it.
Yep.
Um, it was quirky to be quirky in some ways, but like the save frogs, but it always seemed to work. And I've never played Mother 1, but I have played Earthbound, and Earthbound's the same way. It is weird in some ways, but in really joyful ways. And I assume Mother 1 is the same as well. What about
Yep.
you? What about you? Any fun aspects?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main. It's kind of just the feel. It's the unabashed absurdity. Yes, you save it, frogs. Yes, you constantly break the fourth wall. There's these deep themes contrasting with the absurdity throughout the whole thing, and they're not going to apologize for it. And so they kind of it makes it more palatable. You're almost tricked into kind of having these deeper feelings about it, and you don't notice it at first because it seems like you're watching an absurd thing, and then it's actually deep and meaningful.
Hmm.
I really liked the last battle. I thought that was such a fun mechanic for the last one where you're trying to survive and it's very emotional rather than, you know, focusing on how many damage points you can get against the bad guy and fighting God and whatever, most JRPGs end with. Um, and then let's see. So I was actually pleasantly surprised, I guess, with most of these games. I don't like, the lack of quality of life things that have grown with gaming over time and are
Hmm.
present in modern games but absent in older games. But this one, you could get a map. You talk to a map guy and you would get a map, or you would
Yeah.
find a map and a present of the area you were at pretty easily. They didn't make it very difficult. And then you could have access to a map. Sometimes you could even get a circle over the location you were going to. If
Yeah.
you got lost or something, a lot of times you just talk to the people around you, and maybe they would even be like, you look like you're headed here, or something, even that, something that on the nose. Sometimes it felt like, so you would kind of know where to go, or it just wouldn't let you bash your head in the wall adventuring going the completely wrong direction, and it might
Yeah.
just point you the right way. So I appreciated those quality of life aspects a lot that I was not expecting.
Yeah. 2006 doesn't see. I don't know. We're both speaking as like old 30, like late 30-year-olds, of course. But 2006 doesn't seem that long ago. When you look at, I know it's 18 years ago, but
Yeah.
when you look at other games from 2006 that are not on the Game Boy, they have these quality of life like things like having a map.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
it
maybe I
should,
should have expected that. Maybe it is the visuals tricking me into thinking it's older than it is.
yeah, because the visuals are essentially the same as Mother 2 on the Super Nintendo, which was 10 years before Mother 3,
Yeah. Yeah.
which did not, I don't think Earthbound had all of the quality of life that Mother 3 had. That might be frustrating for you if we play it.
I think that would be frustrating. But speaking of frustrating, what were your least favorite aspects?
Ooh. Well, it is an older game, so there were moments where the game it kind of expects you to grind a little bit. I don't know if you felt that way, but there were just a few moments where it was like, and because I was using a guide, that I think we were using the same really pretty guide, that they would have like recommendations to use this power against this boss. And I'd be getting up to the boss and I'm like, well, I don't have that power. Looks like I need to grind to get that power. say, have a ton of healing.
Wait, don't you just have to wait till a fever comes on?
Oh, you're right. I should just walk around and wait till a
You just
fever
walk
gets me.
around and wait for hours.
Yeah, that's how it was, Sam. You know. So yeah, I had to grind and wait for that fever. Well, you're right though. I had to grind, and then I had to get the fever, and then I had to
Yep.
walk it out also.
Yep. Gotta walk it.
You know, I hate the inventory in Mother 3. I hate the system. I hate that each of them have their own, and that once you use all the healing, or if Boney dies and Boney has most of your healing as he is kind of mechanically expected to have, it's like great. Well, then you can't heal basically, unless you have magic powers left over with Lucas and Kumatora. But then you can't heal their magic if they don't have items on their person as well. It was frustrating. So
Yeah, I agree. And then they have like the deposit withdrawal system for your items, but it's like, can't I just hold on to more stuff? Um,
I know.
However, at least it's way more items that you could hold on to than like a game like Fire Emblem. I feel like you can have like 6 things, and that's like all you have. And this was at least more than that. But
Oh, I
so maybe
know.
I gave it some leeway because I'd played Engage so rather recently.
Hmm. Perhaps. I don't know. What frustrated you with the game?
Um, Similar things to you, I think, but also let's see. I think I mentioned this before. I'd want a little bit more combat system depth, maybe. There was more than I maybe thought going into it, but maybe some more and some more delineated roles that somebody's more of the healer or somebody's more of the damage dealer or something that you could lean into building them a certain way. That'd be kind of an ideal world, maybe. There were some certain difficulty spikes, maybe kind of like what you were saying, where you needed to grind, but there was also like when you had one character and you were around the Chimera lab, you'd get one shotted by these things, and so you were running around trying to not fight anything, and you couldn't go anywhere for a little bit. So those don't even seem like just a difficulty spike, relative to your level. It just seemed to make it too difficult to walk around. And then yeah, also there was just a disconnect between certain times, especially early on, where I had a few encounters that were really difficult for me, and I was like, "What is going on?" I feel like I'm using all my available abilities, and then I would look at the guide, and it would say, "Oh yeah, you're just supposed to throw a bunch of thunder bombs at it," and I'm like, "Wait." I don't have any that, and you're supposed to know that you can go behind the house
Yep.
and get a thunder bomb in this hidden area, and you have to do that to beat the, or you're stuck kind of at certain, you're soft locked at certain points almost because it's too difficult to beat certain baddies. That was a little bit poor game design, I would say. That was frustrating, but that was limited to the first couple chapters. Once you got some levels under your belt, once you got some additional party members, it tended to be moot.
Yeah.
That was not as much of an issue. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, so would you play it again on a second playthrough?
I don't know. I really enjoyed Mother 3. I don't know for me if there's much replayability. It seems fairly streamlined, and as a gamer, I really enjoy that. I'm not upset that there were not a ton of different paths to take, or that I don't think there are secret bosses in this game or anything
Not
like
that I know
that.
of.
So I certainly won't say no, I'll never play it again. I enjoyed my time, but it's kind of like a good emotional book. I got what I needed out of it the first time, that I'm not sure those sad emotions would hit the same way playing it a second time. That, and just speaking for me, I other
Yeah.
folks I know that they love the sadness. For me, I don't get joy out of being sad. So
I Yeah, I can see if somebody had nostalgia for it or it helped them get through difficult times, they'd want to replay that. I can
totally.
definitely see wanting to replay it for the music again to kind of hear everything again. But yeah, for me, I guess maybe I'd replay it if there's those callbacks that we were mentioning to the older games. If I ever, if time wasn't a thing and I could play all the other games and then also replay it, maybe that would be interesting to see the callbacks and everything.
Sure.
But other than that, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a kind of a good memory to have and to have played it, but probably won't go all the way through it again.
That's okay.
But if somebody was starting it, what might you tell them if they're starting it for the first time?
I'd say just use a guide. You don't have to have your nose buried in the guide. the entire time. I don't think you should for any game. But just like Earthbound, I think this game is meant to be played with just a little bit of hand holding. Earthbound, like I mentioned earlier, literally came packaged with a strategy guide because the Japanese developers thought it would be too difficult for the Americans. Spoiler alert, they weren't wrong. It was a little confusing in some places. And there's a beautiful fan made guide for sale, actually, for Mother 3. And I highly recommend supporting the local artist and buying it. It's really incredible artwork, and it guides you without spoiling the story beats for you.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I think the guide was phenomenal. I am very anti guide, as you know. I don't want to just play a movie that I'm looking down to know my next move and do that next.
Totally.
So, but I don't know that this guy did that quite as much. And so, yeah, having a little bit of help at times was necessary to not just get as frustrated. And then also, I would early on, I was using all my heal items, any sort of additional PP items, and those kind of things before getting to bosses, just because I was running low on health or whatever else. And apparently, I think it's a better thing to just, if you faint and need to start over, you do it, and then you'll start it and just save all the time. Start at the nearest save point. You'll get your HP and PP back, and you still have your items. And I, that seems kind of like a hack, but it totally is a better way. So you have all your items available for bosses.
I'm sorry. I just PP. It's just
Yep,
yep. Just get your PP
that's what it
back.
is,
It is.
right?
It is what it is. No, you're totally right. It's just I
Isn't
haven't.
it? Or wait, is that just in Unicorn Overlord that I'm playing now? It is in this too, right?
I think. Okay, let me double check.
Oh no, are we gonna have to go back and go over that if I messed it up? Because I
No,
just wanted to say PP so badly.
no it's it's PP.
I was like, it's been a few weeks since I played this, so maybe I'm misremembering the PP.
Wait, is it PP in Unicorn Overlord also?
I believe it is.
Oh wow, there's just so much PP.
Well, it's passive points in that one, but it's PP.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, okay, so we both played it to completion, and why do we think we did? What was kind of the thing that kept you going?
Oh, the story, totally. They gut punch you in chapter one with your mom dying and then your brother disappearing and later assumed to be dead. Even though we all knew who the masked man was, I wanted to see it through to the end so I could see if I could help, bring the brothers back together. I I didn't anticipate that Klaus would die a second time. You know, so I mean, and it made the journey so worth it. I can't imagine it being another way. Now I think Klaus had to die for Lucas's progression, like for his like personal growth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the story more than anything kept me engaged. You?
Yeah, I'd agree. The story was very good. I'd say though, probably for the first several chapters, though, before you had your whole party, before the story kind of picked up and you learned more about the island and those kind of things, I'd say it was mostly just because I knew how highly regarded the game was.
Hmm.
Things like the music were kind of pretty good. I was getting into that, and also I knew we were going to do this review. I really wanted to do right by this review and everything. So I was like, I got to keep going. And then got its hooks in me when I could have a full party and when I could know a little bit more about the story. But yeah, knowing that um, he'd lost his mom and Klaus, and you wanted to figure out the secrets of the island as to why that happened and where's those kind of things. Yeah, that did keep me going. But once I really had the full party and once I knew more about the secrets of the island, then I was hooked.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we are
So
good. Yeah.
no, so I was going to say, there's a lot in here. We talked about kind of the depth of the meaning and the significance and those kind of things, and we've highlighted that some of our favorite characters are the Magypsies, not the Magpies, but maybe the Magpies. And they have an interesting naming convention and maybe some depth there for what that means. So our resident PhD musician is going to tell us all about that.
What? It's me. So yeah, the magpies, the Magypsies, they have interesting names. I'm going to give the names of the Magypsies, and you musicians out there are going to say, "Ooh, I recognize what's going on." So they are named Aeolia, Doria, Ionia, Locria, Lydia, Mixolydia, and Phrygia. And if that sounds familiar, it's because they're the modes. These 7 modes: Aeolian, Dorian, Ionian, Locrian, Lydian, Mixolydian, and Phrygian. This is your modes for dummies recap. I will tell you, I have 3 degrees in music. I learned about this much of modes. I'm holding up a
He's
zero.
holding up zeros.
We just don't learn about, I mean, yeah, you go through it in music history. You spend like a week on it, but that's about it, man. So, of the 7 modes that we're discussing today, all of them have 5 whole steps and 2 half steps. And while they don't have to start on any particular pitch, I think it's easiest to think of them like this: Ionian starting on C, we know this as a diatonic C major scale. Dorian starting on D, Phrygian can start on E, Lydian on F, Mixolydian on G, Aeolian on A, and Locrian on B. Again, you do not have to start that. The modes are modes because of the orders of whole steps and half steps. But it's easiest just to know that C, D, E, F, G, A, B, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. That's how I think of it, man. The order of deaths in the game, I think it'd be fun to do a big research project on this. So the order of deaths in the game technically start with Locria, who, by the way, is Facade. Facade is Locria. Locria is Facade. It's a facade. That's what I was screaming in the game. So the order of the deaths in the game: Locria, Aeolia, Doria, Lydia, Phrygia, Mixo, Ionia, and then Locria again to give us some strange little scale of, not even a scale, B, A, D, F, E, G, C, B again. So I thought that was a cool little bookend that they did. Interesting to note that the 2 most important Magypsies are Aeolia and Ionia. And Aeolian and Ionian are arguably the most used modes, as Ionian is simply a diatonic scale, so think C major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. There you go. So Aeolian is our natural minor scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, te, do. We do that in our, what is it, class 1 of sight singing. So that might make sense to maybe 2 people out there who are listening to the podcast, but
But
they'll
those
get
two
it.
people love it.
Those 2 people are like, yeah, I totally get it, man. Yeah. Aeolian
And one of
and
those 2 people is maybe a student of yours or something.
they might be. So they're the first and last to die outside of Locrian, of course, are Aeolian and Ionian. With Locrian, Locrian is a mode that's the only modern diatonic mode in which the tonic triad is a diminished chord, which is dissonant. This is because the interval between the root and the fifth of the chord is a diminished fifth. For example, the tonic triad of B, Locrian, is made from the notes B, D, F. The root is B, the fifth is F. Ooh, but it's a diminished fifth. So it gives us this crunchy dissonant sound. You could also call it a tritone. And historians would call that the devil's chord. So,
Bum, bum, bum.
so if we really knew our musical modes, we should have known from the start that Locria was the traitor because of a tritone, because of the devil's chord.
See, that's
And
pretty awesome.
yeah,
I
right?
really hope that they actually did that for that reason.
I think
They had to.
they had to have, right?
They had to. It,
I
it,
just,
it only makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think
So I
so.
wonder if like the musical composer for this helped them with this, or if the people who the creators were just musicians themselves, or what.
I tried to do some internet sleuthing, and most people say it's just not that deep, to be honest.
We're creating meaning out of this, but no, they had to do that.
I think the Locrian thing
They had to do the Locrian thing.
that had to have been intentional. I think anything else that we find, about like Aeolian and Ionian, being the two most common modes that we use in like real life, and those being probably the two most important Magypsies in the game. That's probably just a coincidence, I'm assuming.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't
Well,
know.
cool. That
Yeah,
is
that's a little
our
musical moment,
our musical moment. I love it. We're learning a lot. I mean, it lent itself. We had to do it. That was great.
right? Why don't you give us a little bit of a medical moment, Dr. Sam?
I can talk some medical adjacent things, I guess, here. So there's the time on, I think it's the Taintain Island, where you have to eat the mushrooms and then you have a bad trip. So, people, I think everybody would be relatively understanding that that's supposed to be, psychedelic or mushrooms or psilocybin or those kind of things. So I will be chatting a little bit about psilocybin. Disclaimer though. Turn-based besties is solely for fun and educational purposes. Anything discussed on the show is not meant to diagnose or treat medical conditions. This information is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always ask your medical provider about potential health concerns. We are a video game podcast. We are not a medical podcast, but we're just chatting about something fun. So psilocybin. There are actually hundreds of species that grow all over the world that will make the psilocybin, um, that will create psilocybin. So crazy enough, though, it looks like it could be super, super old. So based off of that humans have utilized these mushrooms, based off of like cave paintings, even they think that some of these paintings depict what could be hallucinogenic mushrooms or psilocybin containing mushrooms. And so some of these cave paintings are in Spain, some of them are in the Americas. Specifically, it looks like a lot of the different species are from the Mexico area nowadays. One of them said it was potentially as old as 9,000 BC, the cave paintings that they thought might depict use of these mushrooms. So it's not showing that they're used for religious purposes necessarily, whatever else, but may just be depicting them. And if true, that is amazing and so old.
Cool.
Anyway, so what did they do though? I think most people have kind of heard about some of the effects, but psychological changes can be pretty much a wide range. Some people might just notice an increased suggestibility or an increased openness or a time distortion where time slows down a little bit. Maybe a propensity for introspection, looking inward. They might feel euphoric. And then the things that people know more about or they get kind of the rap for would be some hallucinations or increased sensory experience, including heightening of sensations or even synesthesia. So synesthesia could be feeling or sensing colors differently. Some people might get that effect from using mushrooms. So you do get some physical changes. So heart rates or blood pressure could be altered. You could nauseated. You could have pupillary dilation. Most of this will happen, they believe, through serotonin receptor agonism. So stimulates or partially stimulates the serotonin receptor or interacts with that. Safety wise, again, we're not going to talk about medical things here too much or talk about um, what you should or shouldn't do, but some of the physical changes can happen to heart rate, blood pressure, but the lethal dose would be super, super high. So I was seeing that you'd have to consume like pounds of dried mushrooms in order to theoretically reach the lethal dose. But there have, I think, been cases of people utilizing so much that they thought that it could have been, lethal exposure, not related to other substances and not related to an accident or anything else. So potentially is possible. So be careful. Don't use these things like that, or we're not condoning any sort of use at all. We're just chatting about it.
We're just chatting.
Just ch- and then psychological risks. I'd say these are probably the bigger safety risks. People could have a bad trip, like this happens. Could have anxiety or panic. There could be that could increase your chance of accidents or self-injury, and then or you could have a kind of a psychosis from the hallucinations, and that could or leading to hallucinations, and that could have pretty deleterious or negative effects on oneself. So a little bit on like the legality and stuff. They are considered Schedule 1, it looks like, since 1971 even. So that means they have a high potential for abuse and no medical uses. That's the way the Schedule 1 language is.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be changing. However, there's been multiple studies. It's one of the kind of newer substances along with ketamine, those kind of things that they're using for depression and other psychological disorders that might be newer therapies coming down the pike that could help. So that could be changing because they do have some studies out there with positive effects for that. Again, not diagnosing, not saying to treat, just some interesting tidbits here. But yeah, so there you go. They used it in the game, and now we know a little bit more about it.
Now we know a little bit more. Thank you, Samuel. Sam, do you think another game? Would you want to play a Mother 4 if it were a possibility?
Yeah, I think I could. I don't know why not. I mean, I'm sure a newer one, would I mean, they could make it totally different. If they made it similar, though, they could make it turn based and have more depth of the combat that I would be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they know how to tell a story, so I'm sure the story would be good. I love, the 2D HD graphic type things nowadays. So graphically, I'm sure they could make it, even if they kept it kind of sprites and
Mm-hmm.
2D, they could make it look beautiful and modern in its own right. There's a lot of ways they could do it, but really, I want people to make a game if they have a good story to tell, if they think they can
Yeah.
make a good game. So that's more of the question, I think, is if these people would want to do that and they would have a good story to tell.
Yeah. The curator even said something he always found interesting is he started to grow fond of people who liked the Mother games, but to put that in a cooler way, he said, I might say, the very lives you're living now are Mother 4.
Ooh.
And he says, I really feel that. He's like, today we have lots of ridiculous thoughts. Today we feel sadness. Today we laugh a lot. That's what I had set to do within the world of those games. So that's a really kind and sweet take. I think that Mother
Yeah.
4 would become the life of the player. I think it just further cements that a lot of care went into making all three. And again, I haven't played Mother 1, but I think a lot of care went into making this entire trilogy.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's great. Well, maybe we'll see. Maybe we won't, but it sounds like we won't. But we do have to appreciate what we've been able to play.
I agree.
So speaking of we've played, what are we playing right now? For myself, I am playing Unicorn Overlord primarily, which is great. Maybe you've seen on our Instagram. I kind of sent out that early impressions of it are very, very positive. It's been so much fun. And then also
Woo!
I bought Super Mario RPG as well. I know that's a little bit older one, but I uh, definitely the one of the two of us that plays more Nintendo games. We are a turn-based primarily podcast, so it
Mhm.
definitely seems to be one that I will play at some point. It has glowing remarks on the reviews, and I hear it's rather short. I've read it's only about 15 hours, so for me, maybe I could get through it in 25.
Woo! You know what? You know what'd be kind of fun? You should play. You should play it on Switch, and I'll play it on Super Nintendo, and we can do that at the same time.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm down.
because then I have the speed up function of the Super Nintendo.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe there is on the new one. I don't know. Is there?
I don't think so, not on the
Oh,
Switch, but
okay, never mind.
it's fine.
Okay, well, anyway, what are you playing, DJ?
Right now, I am playing Lufia 2 on Super Nintendo for the first time. I've never played it before. I've never played any of the Lufia games. It is a fun, turn based, old school RPG that has a little bit of a Pokemon element to it. So it's a party of, right now, it's a party of four. I think you get a few more people that you can sub in and out of your party. So a party of four, and then an optional fifth party member is one of the monsters that you get. So you don't control this monster; it attacks or defends or runs away depending on how it feels.
Oh wow,
But yeah, it's cute, 2D sprite based. Perhaps we'll look at it at some point. I don't know if we need to, but it's pretty fun right now.
there you go. Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, all, you can find us at Turn Based Besties on Instagram. You can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts, probably Spotify or Apple Music. You can no longer listen to anybody on Google Podcast because they've stopped being a thing. But you could also find us on iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Overcast, and probably a few places that we don't even know about yet. So go to our socials, drop a comment. Do you love Mother 3? Do you hate it? Are you longing for a remake just like the rest of us? Do you want Mother 3 to finally be officially ported into English? Wait, what? What am I talking about? You can email us comments and questions also at turnbasedbesties@gmail.com. We're going to be back in June for another ranking episode, and I also think we'll be talking about a queer people in video games episode. So it's a big June. So get ready for that. We may have a third episode. We may do another ranking episode even in June. You just watch us and get ready. Big thanks to everybody who's following us on social media. Give us a share, man. Send us to one of your friends. Let's get more followers on there. Let's see if we can get to triple digits. That's right.
Triple.
Let's
Wow.
let's, let's see if we can get to 100 people liking our Instagram. We love going on new adventures with each new episode here at Turn-Based Besties.
That's right. So like we say, when everything in the world points right, maybe go left and see what you find. I'm Sam.
I'm DJ, and this is Turn-Based Besties. Bye!
Bye.